everybody, my name is Anne.
The 12 Dancing Princesses.
The 12 Dancing Princesses.
Chapter 1. Family Trouble.
Chapter 1. Family Trouble.
There were once 12 beautiful princesses, all with long flowing hair and short fiery tempers. Their father, the king, was a grumpy old man who didn't believe in having fun. In fact, he believed that princesses should be seen and not heard.
All of you just sit down and look pretty.
The princesses strongly disagreed.
There were once 12 beautiful princesses, all with long flowing hair and short, fiery temper. Their father, the king, was a grumpy old man who didn't believe in having fun. In fact, he believed that princesses should be seen and not heard. All of you just sit down and look pretty. The princesses strongly disagrees.
The thing they argued about most was dancing. Their father hated it, but the princesses loved it. So whenever he wasn't looking, they danced anyway.
The thing they agreed about most was dancing. The father hated it, but princesses loved it. So whenever he wasn't looking, they danced anyway.
Chapter 2. The Sisters' Secret.
Chapter 2. The Sister Secret.
The girls slept in a tall tower with their beds side by side. Every night, the king locked the tower door so that they couldn't sneak out.
Sleep well, my dears.
One morning, when the door was unlocked, the princesses were still asleep. As the maid went to wake them, she noticed their shoes were lying in a soggy pile on the floor. How strange! The shoes were worn out.
The girls slept in a tall tower in the bed side by side. Every night the king locked the tower door so that they couldn't speak out. Sleep well, my dears. One morning, when the door was unlocked, the princesses were still asleep. As the maid went on to wake them, she noted their shoes were lying in soggy pile on the floor. How strange! The shoes were worn out.
When the king heard about the shoes, he was furious.
Those girls have been out dancing,
he spluttered.
Bring my daughters here now.
Yes, sire.
Princesses should not be out dancing all night,
he yelled at them.
You need your beauty sleep. You should all be ashamed of yourselves.
The girls weren't ashamed in the least. What's more, They wouldn't tell him how they had escaped or where they had been.
When the king heard about the shoes, he was furious. "The girls have been out dancing," he flew. "Bring my daughters here now." "Yes, sir. Princess should not be out dancing all night," he yelled at them. "You need your beauty sleep. You should all be ashamed of yourself." The girl wasn't a hand in the least. What's more, they wouldn't tell him how they had escaped or where they had been.
The next morning, it was clear that the princesses had been out again. The same thing happened 7 nights in a row. The king didn't know what to do. Then he had a brilliant idea. He decided that the first man to discover where his daughters went each night could marry one of them. Posters went up across the land.
The next morning, it was clear that princesses had been out again. The same thing happened 7 nights in a row. The king didn't know what to do. Then he had a brilliant idea. He delighted that the first man to discover where his daughter went each night could marry one of them. Poster went up across the land.
Fed up with your job? Feel like a challenge? Solve a royal mystery and win big prizes. Win your own kingdom and marry a genuine princess. Interested? Drop into the castle for further details. No time wasters, please. Chapter 3. Taking the Challenge.
Chapter 3. Taking the Challenge.
The first man to take up the king's challenge was brave Prince Marcus. "By the way, there is one small catch," the king told him. "If you fail, I'll cut off your head." Okay, no problem, Your Majesty."
The first man to take up the king challenge was the brave Prince Marcus. "By the way, there's one small catch," the king told him. "If you fail, I cut your head. Cut off your head." Okay, no problem, Your Majesties."
That night, Prince Marcus was taken to the tower and put in a room next to the princesses. "Very comfortable indeed." They made him very welcome. One even brought him a cup of hot, milky cocoa. As Prince Marcus drank the cocoa, he began to feel sleepy. He tried splashing cold water on his face, but that didn't work. Soon he was fast asleep and snoring loudly.
That night, Prince Marcus was taken to the tower and put in the room next to the princesses. Very comfortable, indeed. They made him very welcome. One even brought him a cup of hot milky cocoa. As Prince Marcus drank cacao, he began to feel sleepy. He tried fastening cold water on his face, but that didn't work. Soon, he was fast asleep and snoring loudly.
Next morning, the princess's shoes were worn out again. Prince Marcus had failed, and the king wasn't joking about chopping off his head.
"Take him away!"
Many more princes and noble knights came forward, but they were all fooled by the princess's sweet smiles. and their offer of hot cocoa. Enjoy your drink.
Next morning, the princess' shoes were worn out again. Prince Macude had fell, and the king wasn't joking about chopping off his head. Take him away! Many more princes has not night came forward, but they were awful by Princess's sweet smile, and the often author of House Cocoa. Enjoy your drinks.
Chapter 4. Ralph and Rascal.
Chapter 4. Ralph and Rascal.
One day, a magician named Ralph and his pet dog Rascal were passing the castle. Ralph noticed one of the king's posters and decided to find out more. This could be interesting, Rascal.
One day, a magician named Ralph and his pet dog Rascal were passing the castle. Ralph noticed one of the king's posters and delighted to find out more. It could be interesting, Rascal.
When he saw Ralph, the king looked doubtful, but he was desperate to know what the girls were up to, so he agreed to let Ralph try.
I'll chop off your head if you fail, you know.
Yes, but I won't fail. Night came, and Ralph was put in the same room where the others had stayed.
Hello, I'm Amy,
said the youngest.
He's nice.
She whispered to her sisters.
I don't want him to die because of us. Maybe we shouldn't go out tonight.
Her sisters ignored her.
When he saw Ralph, the king looked doubtful, but he was still desperate to know what the girls were up to, so he agreed to let Ralph try. If you fail, I chop off your head. If you fail, you know. Yes, but I won't fail. Night came and Ralph was put in the same room where the other had stayed. Hello, I'm Amy, said the jackass. He's nice, he whispered to his sister. I don't want him to die because of us. Maybe we shouldn't go out tonight. The sister ignored her.
A few minutes later, Annabel, the eldest sister, brought Ralph a cup of cocoa. But Ralph was a wise magician. He knew what she was up to.
This is for you.
It'll take more than that to fool me. He pretended to drink the cocoa. Then, when Annabel wasn't looking, he poured it into Rascal's bowl. Rascal was delighted. Ralph yawned.
I think I'll just put my feet up for a few minutes,
he told Annabel.
A few minutes later, Annabel, the eldest sister, bowled Ralph a cup of cocoa. But Ralph was a wise magician. He knew what she was up to. There for you. I take more than that, you fool me. He pretended to drink the cocoa. Then, when Annabel wasn't looking, he poured it into Rascal's bowl. Rascal was delighted. Ralph yelled, I think I should put my fist after a few minutes, he told Annabel.
Then With an even bigger yawn, he pretended to fall fast asleep. Annabel crept back to her sisters.
He's asleep,
She whispered.
let's get ready.
They put on their sparkliest ball dresses and new shoes. The princesses shimmered like a rainbow.
When, with an even bigger yawn, he pretended to fall fast asleep, Annabel crept back to her sister. "He has slipped," she whispered. "Let's get ready." They put on their sparkless ball dresses and new shoes. The princesses shimmered like a rainbow.
With the last button buttoned and the last bow tied, the girls stood by their beds. Annabel pulled back a dusty old rug in the corner of the room to reveal a secret trap door. The hinges creaked as she pulled it open. One by one, the girls disappeared down some steps and
With the last button put on and the last bow tied, the girls stood by the bed. Annabel pulled back a dusty old rug in the corner of the room to reveal a secret trapdoor. The hinges creaked as she pulled it open. One by one, the girls disappeared down some steps and into a long dark turn.
into a long dark tunnel. Chapter 5. Ralph on the Trail. When the princesses were out of sight, Ralph quickly entered their room. He clicked his fingers and a cloak appeared. With a second click, Ralph vanished. Carefully, he tiptoed down the steps into the tunnel. It didn't take long for him to catch up with the princesses. Ralph tried to walk quietly, but it wasn't easy. At one point, he stepped on Amy's dress. She jumped and turned around, but there was no one there.
When the princesses were out of sight, Ralph quickly entered their rooms. He clicked his finger and cloak appeared with a second click. Ralph vanished. Carefully, he tiptoed down the steps into the tunnel. It didn't take long for him to catch up with the princesses. Ralph tried to walk quietly, but it wasn't easy. At one point, he stepped on Amy's dress. She jumped and turned around, but there was no one there.
A few moments later, Ralph stepped on a twig. Now Amy was convinced that someone was following them. Her sisters didn't believe her.
What was that?
You're just hearing things, silly. At the end of the tunnel, they came to an astonishing row of trees. Some of the trees glistened with silver, some with gold, and some with sparkling diamonds.
A few moments later, Ralph stepped on a twig. Now Amy was convinced that someone followed them. The sister didn't believe her. What was that? Use your head, sitting silly. At the end of the tunnel, they came to an astonishing row of trees. Some of the trees did green with silver, some with gold, and some with sparkling diamonds.
Ralph had never seen trees like them. While the princesses carried on, he gently broke off a twig from each tree. Up ahead, the princesses had stopped before a lake. It stood in the shadow of a beautiful castle. 12 boats were waiting at the edge of the lake, and in each boat sat a handsome prince. Each prince rode a princess across the lake.
Ralph had never seen three like them. While the princesses carried on, he gently broke out of a twig of each tree. Up ahead, princesses had stopped before a lake. It stood in the shadow of a beautiful castle. 12 boats were waiting at the edge of the lake. In each boat sat a handsome prince. Each prince rode a princess across the lake.
Ralph sneaked into the boat carrying Amy. When they reached the other side, a band began to play. The princesses danced until their feet were sore and the soles of their shoes were worn through. As the sun rose, they limped home.
Our nights of dancing are still safe,
Unlike poor Ralph's head, said Annabel, yawning. Amy looked upset.
Ralph speak into boat carrying Amy. When they reached the other side, a band began to play. The princesses danced until their feet were sunk and the soles of their shoes were worn through. As the sun rose, they limped home. Our nights of dancing are still safe, unlike poor Ralph's head, said Annabel, joying. Amy looked upset.
Chapter 6. A shock for the king. The king was having breakfast when Ralph strolled in. "Good morning, your majesty," said Ralph brightly.
I suppose you've come to tell me you failed too,
sighed the king. "Ah, but I didn't, sire," Ralph replied. Waving the twigs, he told the king what he'd seen.
"The mystery is solved." "This all sounds very unlikely," grumbled the king when Ralph had finished. "Are you sure you're not just making it up to save your head?"
The king was having breakfast when Ralph strolled in. "Good morning, your majesty," said Ralph brightly. "I suppose you come to tell me you failed too," sighed the king. "Ah, but I didn't sigh," Ralph replied. Waving the strings, he told the king what he'd seen. "My mystery is solved. This is all sounds very unlikely," grumbled the king. When Ralph was finished, "Are you sure you are not making out to save your head?"
He decided to call for Annabel. When she saw the 3 twigs in his hand, she looked horrified. One look at her face told the king all he needed to know.
"Dancing is banned,"
he declared. The princesses sobbed and wailed when they heard their secret had been discovered.
"What will we do?"
they cried.
"Life is so dull without dancing. This is the worst day of my life."
But there was nothing they could do.
Well, he tried to call for Annabel. When she saw the 3 strings in his hand, she looked horrified. One look at her face told the king all he needed to know. "Dancing is banned," he declared. The princesses sobbed away when they heard the secret had been discovered. What will we do? They cried. Like those dudes without dancing. This is the worst day of my life. But there was nothing they could do. There was nothing they could do.
True to his word, the king let Ralph marry one of his daughters. "I'd like Amy," Ralph said. "If she'll have me. She's the sweetest of all."
"I'm sure you'll both be very happy."
Amy and Ralph's wedding was a joyful occasion. Even the king couldn't stop smiling.
"I have a surprise for you,"
he whispered to Amy.
True is to his word. The king let Ralph marry one of his daughters. "I like Amy," Ralph said. "If she had me, she the sweetest of all. I'm sure you both be very happy." Amy and Ralph's wedding was joyful on occasions. Even the king couldn't stop smiling. "I have a surprise for you," he whispered to Amy.
The king led her to the ballroom and Amy gasped. Hundreds of candles lit up the dance floor, and in the corner a band was playing a lively tune.
"As it's a special occasion, you may all dance, but for one night only,"
said the king.
"Oh, how wonderful!"
cried Amy and her sisters, grabbing partners. They were all still dancing the following night.
"I thought I said one night only,"
said the king, but he smiled. Ralph had worked some more of his magic.
The king led her to the ballroom room and Amy clapped. Hundreds of candles lit up. The dance floor was in the corner. The band was playing a lively tune. As is a special occasion, you may all dance, but for one night only, said the king. "Oh, how wonderful!" cried Amy and her sister, clapping partner. They were all still dancing the following night. "I thought I said one night only," said the king, but he smiled. Ralph had worked some more of his magic. Goodbye.